Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.
What's up, y'all? It is actually Sunday night. I know, I'm late. I made a split-second, halfway thought out, halfway not thought out decision to go out of town. Because I don't know, man. I just be doing stuff. I I make these little decisions, like, sometimes the week before and sometimes the week of, where I just decide that I'm gonna go somewhere. So I went out of town when I was supposed to be doing the podcast. So I'm going to have to do it late. I'm still going to drop the next one on Thursday, but this one's going to be a little bit late, but I feel like this one's going to be the most interesting. If you guys don't know who I am, my name is Caitlin. You can call me Kate. I'm a jack of all trades, master of none. I'm a raging homosexual. I have ADHD, and I'm passionate about life, music, and human connection. And this is my podcast where I talk about anything and everything. And it's called What was I talking about? So recently here, I'm sure everybody's been watching the news. This one's going to be like a little bit heavier of an episode. It's going to, we might, trigger warning, we might end up talking about some violent acts. We might end up talking about some SA cases. I'm going to try to stay away from the SA stuff and mostly just I wanted to talk about Epstein's Zorro Ranch, okay? Because it's something I've been fixated on this ranch for a long time, pretty much since 2019 when he got arrested. The ranch itself, it's very, very close to where my parents live. Yes, it's in the middle of nowhere. I know I had comments on TikTok and everybody's like, well, it's in the middle of nowhere. It is in the middle of nowhere, the ranch itself, but the driveway is right off the freeway there. So if you're going towards Santa Fe or if you're going towards Colorado, you probably will pass it. If you're going, depends which way you're going, but if you're trying to go through like the Moriarty area, you will pass it. If you're going through the Albuquerque area, Albuquerque Metro, you will not pass the ranch. So that's the difference. But it's not as far out as people think. I think the news makes it seem like it's just in the middle of nowhere and no one knows where this place is and blah, blah, blah. But actually, genuinely, it's not that far from society and it's not that far from the main roads, which is almost creepier, to be honest. It almost sounds better when you think it's so far out that, nobody knew what was going on there. And given it was private property, so I'm sure everything that he did wasn't disclosed to everybody. I'm not saying everybody was involved, but there has been reports or allegations that a lot of powerful senators, state senators, and other people within the local political sector of New Mexico were involved in the activities that went on at that ranch, which is also, terrifying. There's been some crazy allegations within the Epstein files about the ranch, and I'm kind of going to go over those with you guys because I've just been hyperfixated and I wanted to share everything that I found with you guys. I'm sure some of this you might already know from the news and stuff, but I don't know. I think because I grew up so close to it as a child, it's very disturbing to me, and it's something I've been hyperfixated on. I'm a big true crime junkie. I did not mention that in my intro, but I actually am really into true crime. And I have been hyperfixated on this place for years, but I don't know. I just really wanted to get into it with y'all and share another side of my passions, which is true crime. Because yes, I'm passionate about life and people and music and all that stuff, but I also have like a more macabre side that's really into just kind of learning psychology and learning how people think. It kind of ties in, I guess, with my passion for people and my passion for getting to know people on like a deeper interpersonal level is getting to know psychology and why people do what they do, why people think what they think, if there's a rhyme or reason to it, because most of the time there is, you just have to dig for it. So that's what got me really into true crime. I'm really into how people think. I like to understand people to at least a degree that I can. I might not understand them fully. I might not understand everything, I don't think anybody will understand someone else unless you are that person, but it is cool to study and learn more about. So Zorro Ranch itself, I can't find the article, right? It seems to have been kind of pushed down because there's a lot of new articles that are popping up since the Epstein files actually dropped. It's shed more light onto the Zorro Ranch that wasn't previously there before. But I do remember when he was first arrested, I looked it up and there was an article that said that most of the ranch hands that worked there actually dispersed and they disappeared and nobody knows because they wanted to question all those people to see what they knew. And a lot of them disappeared, right? They just left abruptly. They said it looked like they left abruptly and, just left all their stuff behind and just bounced. To be honest, I'm not sure if that's because, like, they knew what was going on or, like, that's what I would assume, right? That maybe they knew more than they were letting on. Maybe they helped, or maybe they were just terrified because there were so many politicians and the DOJ and everybody else seems to back up these criminals, which is the scariest part. It's almost like if you have money, you can just get away with anything and everything, and that's honestly the most horrific part of this whole case is the fact that just because the man was rich, he got away with so much stuff, and we're not really seeing a lot of justice for the victims. A lot of the victims and a lot of the allegations that are in the Epstein files, most of those victims, I wouldn't say most, but a lot of them actually have passed away. And the other weird thing is some of them have passed away from quote unquote suicide. And some of them have just kind of disappeared. It's very interesting. I don't want to make accusations, right? But I feel like the amount of people that have actually quote unquote killed themselves is a little scary. So that's another side of the token is a lot of the victims aren't here to advocate for themselves. And I'm not sure that's coincidental, if I'm honest. I try not to like get into conspiracy theories, right? But what happened to all these people? What happened to all these ranch hands? What happened to all these victims? Did they really kill themselves? Epstein, did he really kill himself? I know there's a big conspiracy theory that he's alive. I don't necessarily believe that one, but I also don't necessarily debunk it either. I think anything is possible when you have that amount of power and that amount of money and that amount of pull and influence around your environment and you surround yourself with rich and powerful people. I think you can get away with anything. So I'm not saying he's alive, but I could definitely see that could be an option, right? So Zorro Ranch. So like I said, the ranch hands disappeared, right? Most of them did. But in the Epstein files, there actually was one ranch hand that sent an email. And this is my other problem with the DOJ, right? If you try to read the Epstein files, for one, it's very confusing unless you have a degree in law. It's ridiculous to try to read and try to go through, and it's not separated, and there's a lot of just miscellaneous bullshit in there. There's articles, because remember, this is an investigation, quote unquote, right? So there's a lot of articles and stuff that doesn't really have much to do with what's going on. There's just they're pulling articles from the internet and trying to piece things together within their investigation. So the files themselves, all 3 million or whatever there is of them, is all just kind of compiled together. And so if you tried to actually read them, it's very confusing. And I also feel like that was intentional. I feel like the DOJ did that on purpose because for some reason it's so freaking confusing when you try to read it. Like, it's not separated. It's not, oh, here's the articles, here's the emails, here's this, here's that. It's all like in one thing. And you'd almost have to go and read all of it word for word, all 3 million pages, which of course they probably knew everybody was not going to go in and read 3 million pages of it. So they made it as confusing as possible. And I almost feel like that's intentional. I'm not saying it was, I'm just saying it feels intentional just because it's so freaking confusing to read about. But there was one ranch hand, right, within the Epstein files. He said that he lived at the Zorro Ranch as a teenager. And he alleges that Ghislaine Maxwell, who he called Madam G, and Epstein ordered for them to bury 2 foreign women, or not even women, girls, 2 foreign girls. So supposedly there is an allegation that there are bodies within the ranch, which is very concerning. It's also concerning because I just feel like no one really investigated this case, and I think it's because of his connections within politics, his connections within business, his connections within just kind of dark, scary people. Gross, terrifying, vile people with a bunch of money. And he was one of them, and he found the other ones, and they all just kind of grouped together, and I think the DOJ is a big, big factor in that. Because the other theory was that they were waiting for the statute of limitations to for these victims to reach statute of limitations, so that way they could not actually be criminally charged because it'll be past the time frame, which I also think is weird, because I'm like, if you're the DOJ, right, you're the Department of Justice, that's your job, right? Your job is to bring justice for the American people, and then you're not doing that, and that's terrifying. It's actually scary that they would cover it up and wait for the statute of limitations to be up and then release all this stuff and then be like, oops, too late. I feel like it's very intentional. I feel like it's very corrupt. They're crooks, dude. They're crooks. And they're probably all paid out. I think Pam Bondi is paid fat by probably our own president, if I'm honest, because that's the other person that was in the files so much as Donald Trump. And there was a lot of allegations against Trump, and a lot of his victims are not alive anymore to tell their side of the story. Another thing about it too is when you do read the allegations against Trump, this is going to be all over the place because I'm just spitballing because I have been deep diving, rabbit holing this whole case. But a lot of the allegations against Trump, if you read what the DOJ did about it, it says, oh, couldn't make contact. Oh, we couldn't contact this one either. Oh, we tried, no response. To like every single allegation. You can't tell me that you tried to reach out to all of those women and get the facts from them. I don't believe it. I don't believe that no one answered, especially if they're going out of their way to contact you and be like, hey, this is a problem. This happened to me, or this happened to my friend and she told me, blah, 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 blah. And then for every single one of them to not reach back out to the DOJ when the DOJ, quote unquote, tried and the FBI, quote unquote, tried to get in contact with them, you can't tell me that's legit. You can't convince me. You can't convince me that not even one reached back out, I understand they were scared and all that stuff, but if they had enough courage to come forward in the first place, I'm sure they would have answered if the FBI called them. That's just my opinion, because that's what I got from reading part of the files. Like I said, they're so confusing. I didn't read all of them. I don't think anyone can. It's 3 million pages. But I didn't read all the emails and stuff, but I did read like most of the allegations in there. And they were disgusting. They were horrible. They were terrifying. Super vile. And a lot of it had to do with our own president. So just saying, all right. Their allegations, sure, but the fact that there are so many of them and somehow the FBI couldn't get a hold of any of these people is suspicious. Okay, that's sus. So back to the ranch hand. So there was an email within the Epstein files where he made allegations that Ghislaine Maxwell and Epstein ordered for 2 foreign girls to be buried on the Zorro Ranch property. He said that he never witnessed any criminal activity, claiming some of the staff were, quote unquote, kept in the dark. He feels the size and layout of the estate would make it an easy place to cover up a murder. And this is by The Sun, by the way. This is where I'm getting all this information. So I do believe like some of them may have been kept in the dark, but you can't convince me that all of them were, because the fact that all of them dispersed once he was arrested tells me that they knew something was happening at that ranch, and they knew either their ass was grass or they were terrified that they were going to be murdered. And so they were too scared to speak out. But for whatever reason, they all bounced and dispersed. Maybe half of them were kept in the dark, but I don't believe that everybody that was working at that ranch was kept in the dark. You can't convince me of that either. He recalled a cold interaction with the pedophile who later banned him from bringing friends on the ranch when he was, quote-unquote, hiding out at the property as he faced more scrutiny following his 2008 plea deal. So Epstein, as everybody should probably know by now, he was actually arrested originally in 2008. And once he was released, he just kept doing the same thing. He was a repeat offender. So he got out of prison or out of jail, wherever they had him held, because I think Epstein himself said it was jail. So when they let him out, he just kept doing the same thing. He was a repeat offender. There was no saving that man. He was vile and he was disgusting. And so when he got out, I guess he was telling his ranch hand that he couldn't bring friends or anyone over because he was hiding out at the ranch in 2008. So I guess the ranch hand's father, it looks like, quit the ranch. He said the workload was too much, and they were left sickened when they learned the truth about his crimes. So he's saying, yeah, my dad worked at this ranch, and he's saying that there was bodies there, but he didn't learn about all this stuff till after the fact, after Epstein was released, and then he found out he was a pedophile and all that stuff. But see, even the way that this article itself is laid out is kind of confusing, because I'm like, what do you mean? What do you mean you knew there was like bodies at the ranch, but then like your dad didn't know about that? I don't know. Whatever. It's very, very interesting. So they are looking for survivor testimonies. They're hoping that the survivors will speak out and talk about what was happening there. So the email that was talking about the foreign girls was actually redacted. I tried to read that email, and it didn't say to who it was referring to or who they were trying to email, and it also didn't say who it was from. Because everyone, as you probably saw from Pam Bondi's hearing, she literally redacted almost everything except for the victims' names, which is crazy, diabolical. Why would you not redact the survivors' names, but you will go and redact all these powerful, disgusting, vile, rich people? It's disgusting. The investigation comes after a disturbing claim resurfaced in the Epstein files in a redacted 2019 email, which alleged that 2 foreign girls were buried on Epstein's orders somewhere in the hills outside his Zorro ranch after dying by strangulation during an SA event. So that's disgusting as is. That's a crazy thing to think about, because the fact that this was written in 2019 and nothing happened, and now that was written in 2019. So we don't even know when this happened, because this was a report like, hey, by the way, I know some things. So they sent an email and said, hey, I know this happened, and it didn't say when it happened either. So it could have been years ago. It could have even been like before 2008. We don't know when this happened. But the email itself was sent in 2019, and you're telling me no one went to go investigate that shit? No one thought, bodies on the ranch? Maybe we should go check. Like, are you joking? Like, this place is such a joke. And our politicians are jokes. And the DOJ and the FBI are freaking jokes. Because what do you mean he tried to email you in 2019, or tried to email somebody? Like I said, it's redacted. He tried to email somebody about it in 2019, and nothing's coming of it until 2026, just because they were pressed and forced to release the Epstein files because we would not quit until they did. And I think they need to release them again, and I think they need to unredact all the shit that they redacted, and they need to show us who the names are. They need to stop protecting these people. And they said, oh, like, the whole system, Pam Bondi, she was like, the whole system would collapse. Good, let it burn, bro. I miss the days, right, where everybody hated pedophiles so much that they would murder them in prison. What happened to that? What happened to us hating pedophiles so much that we wish that they would all die? I thought we were all a team on that one, except for, the people committing those acts. But I thought the rest of us as a society were all collectively for protecting the children. That was the one thing, like, if you go to prison, they have to segregate you from the other prisoners because they will murder you for harming children and assaulting children. But now all of a sudden, it's not that big of a deal. Like, Trump's like, oh, we need to stop talking about that nasty man or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, because you're guilty as fuck. That's why you want us to stop talking about it. And that's why you want this to all just be swept under the rug and blown away like nothing ever happened is because you're guilty of it also. You were in there. There were allegations against you, dude, and you know it. And that's exactly why I can't stand like our administration right now. And it's not just Republicans, there's Democrats too. I think the whole system is fucked and we need to get them all out of there. I think we need to let it burn. I think we need to let every single bridge burn. And I think we should just start back over from scratch, okay? To be honest. So I guess they believe that the email was legitimate and reported it to the FBI, but the anonymous allegation has not been independently verified. Okay, so I guess it was anonymous, but it was sent to the FBI, and no one verified it. The New Mexico Department of Justice has requested an unredacted copy of the email as part of its renewed investigation into activities at the ranch. There we go. There we go. That's what we need. We need unredacted emails. We need all of the files redone and unredacted because this is ridiculous, dude. You try to read the shit and you can't. You can't. It's just a bunch of black boxes with the craziest, nastiest, most vile allegations in there, and it won't tell you who sent it to who. That's disgusting. That's actually disgusting. We need all these names released because here's the thing, man. Epstein did not work alone. Yes, there was also Prince Andrew and Ghislaine Maxwell. But you can't tell me that the whole ring, this whole huge sex trafficking ring was only ran by 3 people. Ain't no way. Nope. They had help. They had a lot of help. And who was the help? And that's what's so frustrating, and that's what people aren't getting about it, is the reason why the American people are upset is because they didn't work alone. We're not stupid. We know they didn't work alone. So who were they working with, and who kept this going on? A lot of people said on my TikTok too, and I wanted to address this also. A lot of people said on my TikTok post that you can't get to Zorro Ranch from a road. Like you have to take a helicopter. That's not true. So right off of the freeway, there's a gate, and then right behind the gate, there's dirt road and houses right there where all the ranch hands live. And if you keep going up this long ass dirt driveway, you can make it to the ranch. But of course it's private property, so no, you cannot just drive up there. You can drive by the gate, but for the people that were saying, oh, you can't get to it except for by helicopter, that's not true. You can actually drive up there if you have permission from the owner. Which, speaking of the owner, right? I guess it's a senator guy. It's alleged that he was friends with Epstein, but it's not. I haven't found any proof that that's true, but he could have been. Honestly, senator, probably. At this point, I don't trust nobody. I don't trust politicians. I don't trust business people. I don't trust any billionaire, and I never have. But supposedly he was a friend of Epstein's, and he wants to turn it into a Christian retreat, and I hardcore disagree with that because, for one, that place was so disgusting and vile, and it all had to do with children, so why would you make it a children's Christian retreat? I think that's weird. Super weird. Also, I feel like when devastating, vile, and disgusting things happen like that, to this degree in this capacity, especially, and because it's such a high-profile case, I think that whole motherfucker should be torn down. I think they should go in there, clean sweep, get all the evidence they can, investigate the fuck out of it, and then tear that bitch down when they find what they're looking for. Because I just don't see why it's still up. I don't see why it hasn't been investigated, for one. Investigate it first. And then after that, I don't think we should keep it as a Christian retreat. I think that's freaking disgusting, to be honest. I don't know. And then it just kind of makes me sus because I'm like, okay, you're going to take this place where children were assaulted and turn it into a Christian retreat for children. No, thank you. No, let's not do that. How about we just tear that motherfucker down? Let's clean sweep it. Let's take everything out that bitch. Let's search the property backwards and forwards. And yes, it'll be a lot of ground to cover because that place is freaking huge. You can actually see from the main road, you can actually see the ranch house. But it really is way up there on the hill. Like, it's ridiculous. The driveway to get up there is super long. Like, the gate's by the main road, but the actual driveway to get to the ranch house is ridiculously long, and there's so much acreage to cover. So even when they do investigate, if they really investigate, all these bodies that are there, supposedly, it's going to be super freaking hard to find them just because it's been so long and that the square footage, bro, the acreage, crazy, freaking insane. But I would love to join the search party, to be honest. I totally would. I would go out there and start searching with them. I don't care. I live relatively close for now. Let's see. What else was I looking at? Let's see. Oh, yeah. New Mexico's House of Representatives has approved creating a bipartisan special committee to investigate the ranch that the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein owned in the state of New Mexico. So they are trying to launch an investigation, and I just hope they're thorough. I hope they're thorough. I hope they follow through, and honestly, I hope all the politicians that did have something to do with it are out of office by now, because this is, he bought this ranch, I think, in the 90s. Like I said, I have no faith in politicians, but I think hopefully New Mexico will pull through and actually search up what the fuck is on that ranch and what the fuck happened there and figure it out. Because it's been too long. This should have been investigated in 2008. When he was first arrested, they should have clean sweeped all of his properties and found all the evidence that they could against him and whoever else was involved. Because it's not just Ghislaine Maxwell, it's not just Epstein, and it's not just Prince Andrew. There has to have been a whole committee, a whole army of people to control that big of a sex trafficking ring with 3 people. No way. I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced at all, actually. And of course, he had all these workers working for him. And yeah, they said that, oh, they were kept in the dark. I don't think all of them were, because there's no need to disperse. If you have nothing to hide, you would stay there and be like, hey, I did not know what that dude was doing up in that ranch house. No idea. And you would probably be a witness and testify unless you are scared that you will be murdered. Those are the 2 reasons that I see them not speaking out, is A, if they knew, and B, if they were terrified, which is plausible also, because it seems like he had a lot of pull, and it seemed like even the FBI was covering this shit. That's why it's so disgusting. The House of Representatives is concerned, this is by MSN, by the way. The House of Representatives is concerned that the failure to investigate the alleged criminal activity at Zorro Ranch and the risk of potential consequences of that activity continue to affect the safety and welfare of the state, and that continued legislative inaction threatens public confidence in state government. Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does, especially when you find out all these politicians were tied to Epstein. Yeah, I don't really have faith in the government, in the local state government. I really don't. So they better prove themselves by finding out what the fuck really happened on that ranch and make some headway. Because the only person that would probably know that they have is Ghislaine Maxwell, and she's pleading the fifth. She refuses to talk. Epstein is supposedly dead. So they're going to have to take matters into their own hands, because they're not going to find anything out through those 2, clearly. And then everybody else is freaking redacted. So I think New Mexico should push to have that email unredacted at least, and see what the fuck else we can figure out here, because I think it's been too long, and if there are bodies, they deserve to be found, and they deserve to have justice in some sort of way, and they deserve to have peace. There is no peace when they are buried on the same land that they were assaulted. There's no way. For many, many years, there were allegations of sexual assault and abuse that happened at Zorro Ranch here in New Mexico, which is one of multiple properties that Jeffrey Epstein held, and those crimes were never fully investigated, neither by the local authorities nor the FBI, said Stansbury, who is a Democrat. It says, yeah, that's disgusting. The fact that the FBI and the local authorities didn't investigate this shit is beyond me. Beyond me. And that's how you know Epstein had such a pull, and he had a lot of leg work, because all these people were defending him and hiding him and shielding him for whatever reason. Either they were involved or they were scared of whoever. But it's disgusting, dude. Like, it just doesn't get better. Like, the more I learn about this case, like, it never gets better. It just doesn't. And I'm pissed, to be honest, for everyone that was a survivor and or a victim of Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, because they're not seeing justice right now, and I'm pissed for them. The fact that the local government was so tied into Epstein gives me no faith in the state. I know they opened an investigation, but I don't trust them anymore. I don't trust politics or politicians. I don't trust local legislation. I don't trust anybody, to be honest, on either side, Republican or Democrat, because this is not a Republican versus Democrat issue. This is a humanity versus vile, disgusting crooks. Like, either you're a good person or you're not at this point. It doesn't even matter what your party is. She continues to say, we really find that it's our responsibility as current lawmakers to make sure that we not only investigate, but that we hold people accountable, not just Jeffrey Epstein himself, but those who enabled him, as well as institutions that failed these survivors. So even if that means holding the state accountable, we think it's necessary. Good. I hope they do. See, but that's the problem with politicians, right? Is I'm not saying she's not going to do nothing. But this has always been my problem with politicians, because they'll say some shit like that, and then it's just to make them sound good. It's just to make them build trust with us, just for them to let us down. So I don't know. I know everyone's like on my TikTok and they're commenting like, oh, they're opening an investigation. Okay, well, good, as they should. They should have opened an investigation, I don't know, in 2008. Like, they're way late. But I also just don't have faith. I don't have faith in our local government. I don't have faith in the federal government. I don't have faith in anyone that's in politics right now. And I don't have faith in anybody who is tied to Epstein at all. Even if it was one picture. I don't give a fuck. Why were you there? I don't trust nobody at this point. And I definitely don't trust our president. Okay? Y'all's president. He ain't my president. She continues to say, so in addition to investigating the physicalities of the property itself, we are also partnering with our New Mexico Department of Justice to make sure that survivors can come forward, witnesses can come forward in any way in which is taken seriously, unlike years previous. Good. Because that's the saddest part, is that there were so many allegations from years back that went nowhere. Like I said, all those allegations against Trump, all the resolution side, all it said was, didn't contact, they didn't answer, we couldn't get a hold of them, we tried, oops, couldn't get a hold of them, not a credible source. That's what all of them say. And I'm not convinced. You can't convince me. You can't convince me that all of those allegations are false, for one. And you can't convince me that the FBI really tried their hardest to investigate this shit. I don't think they did. I think they're all tied to Epstein at this point. I think everybody in politics and everybody in law enforcement is. Well, not everybody, but all the higher-ups, all the people that make all the money, they were tied to Epstein too. So I don't trust nobody at this point. So supposedly the two foreign girls, they died by strangulation during SA activities. The unverified allegations came from someone who claimed they were a former employee at the ranch. The sender of the email was redacted by the DOJ. It's not clear that those allegations have been investigated by law enforcement. I understand redacting the sender of the email. I do. But I also feel like they should at least send it to the state unredacted, so that way the state can possibly reach out to that ranch hand and see what they have to say, because they should still be around. That was not that long ago. 2019 really wasn't, but in the grand scheme of things, it was a long time ago when it's in regards to investigating something this serious. Okay, I guess Aragon also said he has tried to contact the email address, but that his messages bounced back. Yeah, because they're probably freaking scared. I don't know. If I was going up against powerful, rich people that ran the biggest scandal in the whole United States history, I'd probably be freaking scared also. But still, I think they need to figure out who was working there. There's got to be like some kind of record of the people that were working there, the people that lived in those little houses. They need to figure out what those people's names were, and they need to interview all these people. and try to figure out and piece together everything that they can. And then they need to go searching that whole ranch for those bodies that are allegedly there. I believe it. I think there are bodies there, unfortunately. I hate to say it, but that's such a crazy allegation. I don't see why it would even be thrown out there if it wasn't facts. The hills behind the ranch, referred to in the 2019 email, are state land, she said, adding to her knowledge the allegations has never been investigated. Never investigated, and it was state land. And Epstein was tied to a bunch of local state politicians. Not coincidental. Not coincidental at all. But it is creepy. I don't know. When I drive past that ranch, I do feel... I'm a very intuitive person. I'm very spiritual. And I do feel a certain type of sadness. Not even like eerie. Like, not like it's creepy, but just like a sadness. It makes my like chest sink almost. It's very hard to describe, but I actually hate passing it because it makes me feel so much sympathy for anything that happened there, and also for the survivors and the victims that are not seeing justice and not seeing the people that need to be held accountable. But I'm really hopeful that New Mexico will pull through and figure out what was going on there. I'm hoping that the investigation will happen and that they will be thorough. Like I said, shit, I will go up there myself and I'll help them out. I don't give a fuck. I will be thorough. If they're not going to be, I will be. Because at this point, I just don't trust anybody. He bought the ranch in 1993. He was arrested in 2008. These allegations came out in 2019 and no one's done shit. No one's done shit. State officials haven't done shit. And neither has the FBI. So you can't expect me to have faith in a government that's ran by a bunch of criminals and a bunch of people that will cover up for other criminals. It's disgusting. So I guess the guy that bought the ranch, I guess he's a senator or something. He does something in politics. Didn't really care to look into it that much. Like I said, I'm very at this point, I'm so anti-government. It's crazy because I just cannot back anyone, red or blue. I don't fucking care. I can't back anyone at this point because this is just so beyond me, honestly. But I guess the guy that bought the ranch, he said that the proceeds from the sale benefited the victims and that he wants to rebuild it into a Christian retreat. And he says he will cooperate with officials on the investigation. So we'll see how that goes. Like I said, the Christian retreat thing, it's freaking weird. I wouldn't do that. I honestly just think the whole place should be torn apart, ran through, figured out, investigated fully, thoroughly, for months, years, however long it takes, and then it should be torn the fuck down. Because it's just, I don't know, when something that evil happens somewhere, I just feel like the land itself is soiled, sort of. And I just feel like that whole house should be demolished after the whole fiasco. But I don't know, that's just me. I just have a strong spiritual intuition with buildings that I know something happened. Even before I really knew exactly what happened there, before I really got into the whole Epstein case, it always gave me a weird feeling. So I just don't think a place where children were victimized should turn into a Christian retreat for children. The proceeds going to the victims, if that really happened, if that's really what he did with the money, which you can't convince me of that either unless there's proof. If that really happened, that's pretty cool. But the Christian retreat idea is just stupid, to be honest. I just think that's a bad idea. I think that place was too evil. But yeah, I don't know. Let me know what else I missed. If there's anything else within the files that you guys found that you thought was interesting, let me know. If anybody else is as into this case as I am, I would love to hear your thoughts, opinions. I try to kind of respond to all the TikTok comments that I got within this podcast, but I probably didn't get to all of them. So if there's something that I didn't cover and that you want me to talk about, we can make a part 2. I'll keep following the case too. I'm not gonna, this isn't like a true crime podcast. It's just something that it's a hobby of mine. It's a passion of mine as well. I found out I'm So in the business world, there's different personality types, and I found out that I'm M-shaped personality as far as work goes, where I have like 6,000 million hobbies and too much to talk about and not enough specialty in anything. So I'll do like true crime stuff on this podcast. I'll do relationships. I was going to do a relationship one. I was actually going to read Am I the Asshole threads, but I just couldn't today because this was just heavy on my mind. And that's what this podcast is for me to talk about whatever is heavy on my mind. And right now it's this damn Epstein file fiasco, redacted everything, the DOJ. Like I've been way too into politics right now. So I had to make an episode about that. But if I missed anything, let me know. Next week, I'm either going to do Am I the Asshole, or I'll go back to talking about relationships because I love talking about people and relationships in life. But I can absolutely keep following this case, and I can absolutely do a part 2 if you guys are interested. But yeah, just let me know. Thank you guys for listening. I hope they investigate this shit, and I hope they are thorough. That's it. I just have no faith. But thank you guys so much. Thank you guys for the support. Thank you guys for listening from start to finish, and thank you guys for listening to all my other episodes as well. If there's something that you like that I talk about and you'd like to hear about more, just let me know. And yeah, I think we're gonna leave it here for the week. Well, not really for the week. I'll be back Thursday night. I'll go back to my Friday schedule. This week was just crazy because I was like, you know what I'm gonna do? I was like, I'm gonna go out of town. So I went out of town and I was driving and I was like, oh shit, the podcast. And I was like, I wonder if I could film it or record it in my car. And I was like, no, probably not. Too much background noise. And so I opted against making an episode in my car. And then I was going to do it when I got to said destination, and I didn't do it then either. So yeah, this one's going to be a little bit late, but I'll go back to the Friday schedule. Thank you guys so much. This is Kate, Jack of all trades, signing off. And dude, what was I talking about?
Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.